And now let us enter into a time of worship by lighting the flaming chalice, symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. If Ed would be so kind as to come light the chalice. Ed is from our Indigenous Connection Circles. He will be lighting the chalice today. As I say these words from The Spiral Dance by Starhawk. In the circle, we are all equal. When we sit in a circle, we are all in sacred relationship, each person a vital part of the whole. And now, let us say together the words of our mission, which affirm our shared purpose. Empowered by love, we transform ourselves and serve our world. Jean?
Good morning. I'm your other worship associate today. My name is Jean DeVenny. I use she, her pronouns. I'm an elder woman in her 70s, wearing a dark sweater, a beautiful rainbow stole, and I'm really happy to be here and see your faces. So, November is Native American Heritage Month. It's important to note that this church sits on Kalapuya Ilihi, the traditional indigenous homeland of the Kalapuya people, who were dispossessed of their land by the U.S. government and forcibly removed to the Coast Reservation in Western Oregon. Today, Kalapuya descendants are primarily citizens of the Confederate Tribes of Grand Ronde and the Confederate Tribes of Siletz Indians, and continue to make important contributions to their communities, to Oregon, and to the world. UUCE congregant Ed Wolf, who lit our chalice, is here today to speak about the history of federal boarding schools for Indigenous children that operated here in Oregon. So, Ed?
Good morning. My name is Juan Eduardo Wolf. Call me Ed. I use the he, him pronouns. And for those needing a visual description, I'm wearing a white button-down shirt, a vest made from a repurposed Aymara blanket, and a black cap with the symbol of the 23 indigenous tribes of lowland Bolivia who are fighting wildfires at this moment. As was mentioned, November is Native American Heritage Month. Last year, as you may recall, the Indigenous Connection Circle helped celebrate this time by organizing a display of Native American artwork, the blankets that hung in our sanctuary for several months. This year, we're responding to the reason why we need Native American Heritage Month, the attempts by the U.S. government to erase Native American culture from our society. Beginning in 1819 and continuing up into the 1970s, the government developed policies that established and supported Indian boarding schools in the contiguous 48 states, as well as Alaska and Hawaii. Advocating for these policies in 1892, Captain Richard H. Pratt summarized their intent as, quote, "Kill the Indian, save the man." Children were forcibly separated from their families to live in schools run primarily by religious institutions. They were taught English, dogma, and a trade in the hopes that they would forget their native language and culture, thereby assimilating into U.S. society. We should not overlook the fact that, in doing so, the government hoped to reduce or avoid fulfillment of its treaty obligations, which included monetary payments to tribes. As you can imagine, these policies were devastating for Native American communities, both physically and culturally. Tens, if not hundreds of thousands of children were part of the program and were punished, even abused and tortured for speaking their language, wearing traditional clothes, or behaving in ways that were deemed part of Native culture. Many never saw their families again. At least 973 children were killed, and many are unaccounted for. Beginning in 2021, the first Native American Secretary of the Interior, Deb Haaland, led the Federal Indian Boarding School Initiative, which released a 3-volume investigative report on the schools and practices, sponsored a Road to Healing tour to connect survivors with resources, and funded an oral history project to collect the stories of the schools.
But the federal government has never.
Just last month, 50 years after the programs shut down, President Biden formally apologized for the government's roles in running these schools. A statement from the Interfaith Network for Indigenous Communities calls upon, quote, member faith communities here in the Northwest and throughout the country to tell the truth about their own association with Indian boarding schools in the United States. Here at UUCE, in our efforts to move beyond land acknowledgments, we should be aware of our relationship to this history. The American Unitarian Association tried 3 times to become one of the religious institutions that ran a school, with only one receiving funding, the Montana Industrial School for Indians. Beginning in 1886, the school ran for 10 years, housing 50 children at a time. In running the mission school, Unitarian minister and Mrs. Henry F. Bond were described as teaching the children, quote, neatness, cleanliness, and practical Christian life. Reports also mention that, quote, the Crow parents wanted to be close to their children, but the Reverend Bond would not allow it in order to maintain discipline and to pursue indoctrination without the outside influences of family. Bond's mission closed when the government withdrew its subsidy. We should also be aware that because of treaty obligations, the government funded such schools for 20 years, up until 1875, for regional tribes like the Grand Ronde, Molalla, Umpqua, and Siletz. Members of additional groups without treaties were incorporated into the system as well. While these schools were run by other denominations, as members of the local community, we continue to live with the repercussions of these schools as well. As part of Native Heritage Month, then, the Indigenous Connection Circle asks you that you take a moment to remember the victims of these practices. Please consider how we might respond and engage with this history. We invite you to visit boardingschoolhealing.org to learn about the movement for truth, justice, and healing in the wake of these schools. These efforts include a bill currently in front of both houses of Congress to establish a Truth and Healing Commission on Indian boarding schools. If you can, we also invite you to the Indigenous Connection Circle meeting as we consider actions to respond to this history. May we remember and learn from it, dedicating ourselves to preventing any similar practice from happening again. Amen, and blessed be.
Welcome, all of you who have gathered here, whether you are present in the sanctuary or joining us from afar. My name is Ember, and I serve as our intern minister. Although I am saddened that I am unable to be with you in person, I am also so grateful that we are able to gather in this way as we come across distance, across difference, and across time itself to feel the pulse of something deeper. Today, we come not just to witness one another, but to reach out and create a circle of care that is as expansive as it is sacred, held by the presence of those we can see and those who are beyond our sight. Let us take a moment to settle into this space, feeling yourself being supported by the earth, by our planet, and by our love in this gathering. Let your breath fill you with a sense of rootedness, as if the space around you is opening up, creating room for others to join you. Take a deep inhale, breathing in the presence of this community, and exhale, offering a bit of yourself back into the space between us. Let us hold the hum of this sacred connection, a heartbeat that pulses within each of us. Today, as we worship, may we make the choice to enact to engage acts of grace, and a promise we make again and again to be present in each other's lives. Welcome. Let us worship together. Please join me in taking a deep breath, allowing yourself to settle into this shared moment, knowing that wherever we are bound together by our intention to be here. As you settle into your body, allow a wave of compassion to roll over you, thick and golden. Bring your right hand to your heart. Feel the warmth beneath your palm, the quiet rhythm that reminds you of your aliveness. Gently bring your attention to your left thumb, bringing your left hand parallel to your heart, feeling that syrupy, golden energy run from your heart to your hand. Bring your thumb to meet your middle finger and rest it just below your heart. This becomes a mudra, a symbolic or ritual pose, an invitation to balance, to openness, and to the shared energy of this circle. As your fingers connect, feel a gentle spark, a glittering, pulsing green meeting the gold, warming you. Imagine a circle, an ancient and powerful symbol of unity, extending from this sanctuary to every place each of us calls home. In this circle, each presence matters, each heartbeat joins in rhythm with others. Imagine that as we breathe together, we reach across distances, across screens, and feel a quiet warmth brushing the edges of our being, dissolving any sense of loneliness or separation. As you hold this gesture, take a final deep breath, letting yourself be held in this circle, knowing that we are bound together by choice, by intention, and by love. When you're ready, release your hands, gently letting this circle remain within you. In this spirit of unity and presence, may we carry this feeling of connection with us, knowing that together we create a world where no one stands alone. Thanksgiving holds a cherished place in our collective traditions, while remaining steeped in complex histories and myths that reveal both the beauty and the complications of our national identity. The common portrayal of Thanksgiving as a peaceful gathering of pilgrims and native peoples obscures the painful realities of colonialism and the violence inflicted upon indigenous communities, even within our own hallowed halls. Because Thanksgiving, as we know it, wasn't established at the dawn of our nation. It was not an observed national holiday until the Civil War, when President Abraham Lincoln sought to remind a fractured nation of the importance of family and communal bonds amid division and unrest. Gathering, especially around a holiday as complicated as Thanksgiving, invites us to sit with the fullness of our history, learning to navigate the discomfort it brings with an openness to growth and a commitment to deeper understanding. I actually really appreciate the season between Halloween and Christmas, a time that we push past to focus on tinsel and twinkling lights, and while I understand that simply pausing and breathing with our community is not as fun as preparing for Christmas, I think it leaves a gap in our celebration of the Western year. And one of my favorite Thanksgiving rituals and one of my favorite all-time comfort movies is the 2003 film Pieces of April. April, our main character, is determined to host Thanksgiving dinner for her family despite a strained relationship and the limitations of her apartment. Like many of us, she is seeking something intangible, something larger than herself that she can't fully articulate. The holiday gives her a reason, a ritual of gathering to hold on to, even as her struggle to host Thanksgiving becomes a metaphor for the messy, complicated, painful, yet resilient nature of human connection. Take a deep breath. Bring your awareness to your heart. Feel its steady rhythm, the warmth within it, and let each beat remind you how much love you carry and how much love is carried for you. As you breathe, hold our gesture, connecting to the energy of compassion that flows from the tips of your fingers through your arm into your heart, knowing that your heart is enough, that it holds everything you need. Gathering is often a balm for the soul, grounding us in the knowledge that we are not alone in the burdens we carry, each gathering becoming an opportunity to unburden, to let others shoulder part of our weight, if only for a moment. Perhaps this is the deepest why of our gatherings. The simple, profound need to know that we belong to something greater than ourselves, something enduring. We gather to remember and to be reminded that we are bound to one another, that we do not shoulder our stones alone, and that our lives, however small they may sometimes feel, are part of a larger, purposeful story. And perhaps, even if we cannot always articulate it, we understand this, that to gather is to affirm our place within this circle of belonging and care, to feel the gentle yet powerful assurance that we are indeed home. Pause, breathing deeply into your belly. Feel the rise and fall with each breath, the center of your body grounding you. With each exhale, release any tension, letting it melt away. As you hold our gesture, connect to the gentle power of your core, knowing it holds resilience and peace. One of the most tender scenes in Pieces of April occurs when April, in her desperate search for a working oven, encounters a Vietnamese family in her apartment complex. With no common language to rely on, they engage in a wordless exchange, an unspoken understanding passing between them that surpasses cultural and linguistic boundaries. The family quietly welcomes her into their home and offers their kitchen without hesitation. April's response is equally poignant as she attempts, awkwardly but earnestly, to reciprocate the generosity shown to her by telling the story of Thanksgiving, of finding a way to hold both the imperfections of the holiday alongside the growing knowledge that no matter what stories we tell around this day, that this is a day where we gather because we are, none of us, alone. Gathering opens the door to personal and communal repair by creating spaces where we can be vulnerable, seen, and known, Repair is rarely a single neat event, but rather a messy, imperfect process that unfolds over time. We come for the story, but if we are going to love that story, we must also own its contradictions and understand the deep complexities beneath it. Like April, we might find ourselves drawn to the hope of gathering and belonging. But our love for her story and for Thanksgiving can still coexist with an honest recognition of its flaws. Acknowledging these flaws means recognizing that this Thanksgiving story at its core is steeped in white supremacist ideals, having extended an open invitation to former oppressors without fully honoring those harmed. In our Unitarian Universalist spaces, we covenant together to uplift each other's stories, while so often looking away from our own complicity in this narrative. As we remember Thanksgiving's roots, we are reminded of a nation yearning to come together in the wake of division. Americans sought common ground, a way to reconnect across fractured lines. The Thanksgiving meal became a symbol of togetherness, embodying the hope that we could unite beyond our differences. Breathe into your shoulders. Notice if they carry weight or tension, and with each exhale, let them soften, letting go of what no longer serves. Bring your hands into our gesture, feeling the strength and openness in your shoulders, knowing that you are capable of holding yourself with care and compassion. And knowing what that warmth and connection can feel like means we also know in our bodies that leaving a community or a loved one is the hardest, most necessary act of self-love we can perform. Sometimes the kindest action is stepping away from spaces that no longer align with our needs, knowing that this boundary is not a failure but a measure of self-compassion and integrity. Navigating that choice to leave what was once beloved requires courage and a deep trust in the worth of our stories. In leaving, we don't discard the memories, growth, or lessons we experienced. Instead, we carry them forward, honoring what was while releasing what no longer serves us. Moving forward can feel lonely, but it also offers the freedom to gather in ways that center our truth and invite us to fully inhabit ourselves. Being here across time and space with loved ones we chose is enough because we are enough. We are not here to fit ourselves into stories that ask us to be smaller. Rather, our story is one of wonder and expansiveness, where we are called in. As we approach this holiday, a reminder that we will be hosting a community meal. Please see the poster in back or in the office for sign up. For those who have left communities of belonging, and for those who have not yet found their communities, we welcome you this season. As we continue to process and engage with our circle of care following the election, please join us for a listening circle Sunday after Thanksgiving, December 1st, for a discussion around our continued organizing in the face of injustice and oppression. Take a moment to breathe and bring your awareness to your soul, to the deepest part of yourself, and let each breath settle into this space, offering a sense of wisdom and light. As you hold our gesture, feel the connection between your soul and your body, grounding yourself in the wholeness of who you are. sitting together without needing to fix or explain ourselves, we create a circle of care. This shared space strengthens us, allowing us to release our anxieties, if only for a moment, as we connect to something greater. In the simple act of being present with one another, we reclaim hope, finding a grounding that empowers us to face a new dawn. Amen, and so mote it be.
I have 3 other announcements, but one of them will be presented musically.
Our holiday bazaar is December 7th. We'll have vendors come buy a present. Naja soup will be hot and sweet treats we've got. Please come to our winter wonderland. In the hallway you can make a wreath or get your photo portrait made by Steve. Bring the children Friday night for shopping and free wrapping in the regifting store. We need volunteers, not perfection. Please take a look in Weekly Connections, or if you'd like you all to see us in the hall, we'll have an info table after church.
Now, if we shall say all together the words of extinguishing our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Ember will deliver our benediction, and after, if we could kindly stay
And
seated.
now, as one gathering ends.
Enjoy the choir.
And now, as one gathering ends, may we hold this peace and resilience until we meet again. Go in peace, practice love. Amen, and so mote it be.